Hey everybody, it's Phil Strazula from Select Software Reviews, and today we're talking to Brian Testa. Brian has a really interesting background in the world of HR, and today we're specifically going to be talking about comp benefit software. What does this do? What are key selection criteria? Who are some of the top vendors? How is it going to help you with your HR strategy? Brian, thanks so much for being here. Do you mind just giving us a quick kind of intro on yourself?
Yeah, sure. Phil, thanks for having me today. Sure, I've been in the HR space for around 20 to 25 years, really focused on emerging technology organizations, and where that has led me to in my career is having a very strong focus on HCM transformation. As I go into emerging tech organizations that are scaling, we've always had the ability of going out and selecting a piece of HCM software we could build a business around that HCM infrastructure. And like I said, I've worked with startups, emerging technology organizations, and again, focused on HCM.
Nice. So I guess before we get into all the details around comp and benefits software, do you mind just giving us like a 101, like what even is this? Like when people start talking about this, like kind of what does the software do and how do HR teams use it?
Sure. Yeah, and comp and benefit software is super important because what it does is it provides strategic and tactical approaches to how HR organizations look and evaluate, and they're both really separate tools. And so from a compensation perspective, from a tactical approach, a compensation tool is going to help you pay out sales commission. It's going to help you pay out total cash compensation, whether that's in the form of a variable bonus. And then it's also going to help align your business with peer organizations within the market. And what I mean by that is it's going to interface. Typically, most HCM products are going to have some level of interface with a comp system or a comp data system, like a tool like a Radford. So
basically,
salary.com, right? Whatever product you choose to use. So a lot of those. So again, you want to look at it in two different phases: there's tactical and there's very strategic approaches. And the same thing with a comp. So same thing with the benefits approach. The benefits, it's not only going to be a tool that's going to enable you to use it for open enrollment, which what everyone thinks of when they think of a benefits tool or module. But when you look at the complexity of the benefits around the compliance components, and also when you look at the benefits as you run as an organization, when an HR person thinks about run from a benefits side, really what they're talking about is how their benefits are running versus their payout, as far as how they look for claims, how they're doing analysis around claims. Do they have large claims? Do they have small claims? And again, it's all relevant as it impacts the benefits capacity as far as renewal.
Got it. And so there's like the sort of compliance stuff, which is like
right.
Workers' comp, health insurance, unemployment insurance, and then there's financial wellness benefits and pet insurance and all this other stuff. And I guess there's probably also like some sort of strategic like retention and talent acquisition implications for having the right benefits packages and making it accessible to employees. So you're not, having to like call customer service to figure out, if providers in network or something. But then there's also sort of the blocking and tackling of like, hey, we got to, service claims and make payouts and all that other jazz.
That's right. Yeah. So like I said, very strategic and also very tactical in how you're using the modules and how you're using that comp and benefits pieces separately.
Awesome. And I know that, your background is in these emerging technology businesses, a lot of large enterprise companies that you've helped kind of do this stuff. Is that really who it's relevant for? Like super large companies, or like, is it really, okay, it's companies up and down the spectrum.
That's right. Up and down river. So, I think back in the day, I think when you had some of these larger organizations producing some of the enterprise modules, right? Or enterprise systems. It was larger organizations use enterprise, and then there was mid-market, and then there was small market. But I think you're starting to see organizations moving up and downstream to really right size and right fit organizations. And you're seeing that across the board with smaller organizations that are producing a very robust HCM product, that you're seeing large organizations feel very comfortable fitting into their organization.
Yeah, it seems like to me you've got like the PEOs at the sort of bottom end of the scale, where if you're a subsale, like a less than 100-person organization, you're probably going to go to a PEO and get the kind of group buying power. And a lot of those organizations now have software on top of it, which mirrors an HRIS, HCM suite.
Right.
And you've got like the mid-market players, the Namely's, the Bamboos. And then it seems like your expertise, a lot of what you've kind of dealt with is a lot of these enterprise solutions, like your Workdays, Talleos, Ultimates, I guess to some extent as well. Is that kind of like, how do you see the vendor ecosystem?
Yeah, and so my background, not necessarily by design, have I focused on enterprise, and I've bought in the mid-market as well. I've bought Ultimate software a few times, and I bought Oracle a few times, and I've also used Workday. How I see that system, how I see that ecosystems in the HCM world, I see it as having it to be the right fit for the right organization. And what I mean by that is a lot of organizations are looking outside of the HCM space. And what I mean by that is organizations are going to look at what a piece of software can do for them as an organization. So a lot of times they want it to be able to be compatible with their ERP systems, their HCM systems, across the board into their supply chain, and how that impacts their business as a whole. And that way you're creating a really all-encompassing data and metric-driven type of solution. And I think that becomes really important, especially when you're having, at the C-level and at the board level, having these decisions being driven from based on impact of the business, and again, costs, all these different variables that are going to come into play. But I think organizations are looking not just at an HCM solution. They're really looking at what that solution can do across their organization.
Yeah, given there are so many vendors, like what are some key criteria that you think HR teams should be looking at when they start to evaluate solutions?
Sure. I think it's the right size of and right fit. Again, what do you want to get out of the tool? For me, like some of the things that I look at is I want to be a data-driven leader, and for me, one of the things I look at that's super critical is the analytics component of what it can do. What's the dashboard going to look like, and what are some of the ancillary tools that we can use with this system to really get coming out of the, again, VC and private equity focus. I mean, they want numbers. They want to be able to analyze and see it in a very quick snapshot. They don't want, to have to read through a series of documents to get to those bottom lines. So I look at the analytics components of it. I look at the employee self-serve and the manager self-serve components to it as well, which because I want employees and managers to be able to drive that self-serve function.
Yeah.
And I also want to look at some level of customization. And for me, that becomes really important. And again, that's just a preference that I have. Like as an example, when I do performance evaluation and performance management, like there's certain things that I want to have in place. I don't always want an out-of-the-box solution. And I think that, again, there's some really good products out there that can deliver that and do customization pretty easy.
And when you say customization, you mean the ability to like design custom compensation plans or custom benefit plans, or?
Sure. Yeah, all the above. So the ability to be able to create a business process around the software. So a lot of times when you have a piece of software that comes out of the box, you have to change the organization's business process to accompany or to accommodate that out of the box solution, where some of the other products, and I won't say they're all enterprise because that's not accurate, but some of the what you want to do is you really want to focus keep your business process in place, keep your controls in place, and then focus on the change management as it happens, as you do and customize your software.
Gotcha. That makes sense. You mentioned a little bit around like a lot of times these decisions are kind of made at like the C-level. Can you talk a little bit about internal stakeholder management? Like when do you start? What do you do? How does that evolve as you kind of move through the selection and implementation process?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it starts very early on. I think I make it known when I'm talking to whether it's potential clients or clients that I believe very heavily in HCM transformation. Mm-hmm. And I think you start laying down that groundwork and you start to, do what I call socialization around your business process as it exists without an HCM solution and your business process with an HCM solution. And really talking about the ability to drive your business and really focused around scale. And for me, I go into organizations and talk about the development and creation of infrastructure that scale your business. And I feel that HCM solution, that HCM transformation is really the hub of that infrastructure. And it's really, like I said, think about all the components it covers for my world, as far as from being the head of HR, it's comp, it's benefits, it's talent management, which is huge and encompasses so many different components, succession planning, workforce management. It's just a tool, but it gives an organization the ability to create that infrastructure, build a baseline, build metrics, analytics, and KPIs. And I just think it's, for me, like I said, I'm not married to one specific solution, but I think it's really hard to scale a business without it.
Yeah. So you're basically going into these many times like VC private equity backed companies and you're like, look, here's sort of like your process right now. Here's, especially like these are growing organizations, like this is kind of how it's going to break down. And here's how technology can address some of these challenges. And therefore, here's what it's going to translate into saving FTEs and potentially decreasing your, cost per hire, increasing retention, et cetera. And sort of getting that buy-in from the executive level to do that transformation. And part of it's comp and benefits and part of it's sort of the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, it's a huge spectrum. And typically, the people that I'm dealing with is on the technology side of the business, very metrics driven, very driven through KPIs. And this gives us the ability to deliver those numbers very accurately and quickly. And that is obviously very appealing.
Got it. So you kind of get their buy-in, and then are you like going back to those, like how often are you going back to that exec team and checking in with them, and in what stage of the kind of buying and implementation process for like a comp and benefit solution?
Yeah, typically it becomes a data-driven approach. And what I mean by that is typically, I'm looking at the organization, I'm looking at the size, I'm looking at the scope. And I'm also having a pretty solid understanding at that point of how quickly they plan to scale. Are they going to double the organization? And it's, in the next 12 to 18 months, or are they going to triple it, or are they going to go out and do an acquisition? And for me, it's really taking in all this information and being able to drive some decisions, some key decisions, and getting some backing. And how a lot of times I do that is I'm building a center of excellence within my organization. So what I'm doing is I'm aligning with a CIO, a CTO, a finance, a CFO, et cetera. And what I'm doing is I'm really talking about and building a best practice. Mm-hmm. And just to show what peer organizations are doing, If the organization's 250 employees, I can talk about maybe the right tool and why. And then obviously talk about the financials that go with that, but also talk about what it can do for the business, the value add.
Yeah.
And again, the financials that go with that, because at the end of the day, it really is driven through the numbers. You're going to win your cases, or you're going to be able to advocate for a tool like this by showing the ROI.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can you talk a little bit about sort of like implementing one of these things? Like maybe what are like the high level buckets of like you do this, this, and this, and like what are the sort of best practices and pitfalls that people should know about?
Sure. And for me, going out, working for an organization, I spent 10 years at K-Base Technologies. K-Base was a third-party system integrator, and they did HCM supply chain. That was only a part of their business. They're also a SaaS organization. But for me, I learned from some really, really great people, some very smart people that started the business. And for us, what I've always looked at is, again, building a business process. And as you're going through the integration process, it's really important that you define what you want your process to look like. And I'll talk about, from a comp perspective, are we self-insured? Are we fully insured? What does that look like? How important is it for us to evaluate what our run rate is for our benefits and our costs? And so we're always evaluating these variables. And when you're creating a business process, you want the software to be able to emulate that process. Mm-hmm. Again, putting in a piece of software that's going to work for your business. And then obviously doing a change management component of that as well. So I think creating a business process is definitely number one when you're going in and you've gone through the selection process and you've identified a tool. I think the integration piece is super important. And I think some of the secondary components is getting change management. So what process, and it's a great opportunity to be able to change your process and build your process and improve the integration of controls. And so it's also really important to really be an advocate for change and change management. And then the third is how you roll it out, how you communicate it. If you're not educating people on how to use it, then the project's probably not going to be successful. You really have to focus on the being able to create power users, being able to create, whether it's from an HR function or from the business, it's really creating power users, someone who's going to embrace the software, people who are going to own the software, and again, maximize your investment. Because if you spend, a lot of money on a piece of software, on a piece of SaaS software, and you're not maximizing it, then you're just basically paid for a very expensive, probably payroll system.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's right on. I guess we've kind of talked about a lot of the basics here around comp benefits. Are there kind of killer features people should be aware of that make it more than just a payroll system, that really drive like the ROI and help the HR team sort of with their strategy versus just sort of like the tactics of like, making sure people have benefits?
Sure. Yeah. And it goes back to, from a compensation perspective, it goes back to that any compensation module is really going to be able to tell a great story when you're doing things like a comp ratio exercise, which is measuring employees to the market, to the 50th percentile of the market. So you're being able to have an understanding of what your peers are doing. As we look at, our country or even the world as it stands in the competitiveness for talent, you have to be educated in how you're going out and approaching that market. And what I mean by that is when you're going out and engaging with the candidates, you're going to lose people very quickly if you're not competitive in that market from a total cash compensation, even from an equity perspective. So being able to use that module from a compensation perspective of going out, educating yourself, and aligning it with again, peer organizations. And then the same thing on the benefit side. It's, aligning the benefits module. Now, a benefits module isn't always going to be able to tell you what your peers are doing at other organizations. You should be able to drive that through your broker, but you can capture that data within the system. And again, really start to educate yourselves more than just an open enrollment tool. It's really going to be a module or a tool that's going to help you make some key decisions as you drive, and drive some of the numbers through the system. Whether you're looking at internally or externally.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Where can people find you online if they want to follow up?
Yeah, well, I'm on LinkedIn, Brian Testa, and I am also, let's see, you can be found on your website as well.
Yeah, selectsoftwarereviews.com. Awesome.
Software Reviews, yeah, and it's been great to be a part of your organization as well.
Awesome. Brian, thank you so much.
All right, Phil, thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for your time.